Deep in the jungles of tropical Africa, almost as far away from human contact as possible, lives an animal unlike any other. Closely resembling us in terms of physical appearance and behaviour, this is the realm of the gorilla, the world's largest primate. Under a chorus of rainforest birds, and within the densest of equatorial forests, these great apes forage, play and survive. Gorillas are one of the most recognizable animals in our natural world, and they are extremely predominant in popular culture. But how much do we know about them? In today's video, we will be delving into the life and history of these spectacular great apes, taking a look at their high intelligence, their methods of obtaining food, how they survive, and how their relationship with man has changed over the years since their scientific discovery. Join us as we head to the deepest tropics to discover the gorilla, the largest and most powerful primate alive today. Unlike the other animals we have thus far covered on this channel, what we recognize as a gorilla could be one of two species. The most widespread, by a relatively small margin, is the western gorilla, found across the rainforests of Angola, Cameroon, Equatorial Guinea, Central African Republic, Gabon and the Congo. This is the slightly smaller of the two species. Adult males, on average, grow to around 1.6 meters, or 5.5 feet tall, and weigh roughly 168 kilograms, or 370 pounds. Females are much smaller than the males, and can generally reach around 70 kilograms, or just over 150 pounds. There are two known subspecies of western gorilla: the western lowland gorilla, which inhabits rainforests within the countries listed previously, and the cross river gorilla, a significantly rarer subspecies of around 250 individuals, which live on the bordering rainforests between Cameroon and Nigeria. The slightly larger species of gorilla is the eastern gorilla, which lives in high-altitude rainforests along the eastern reaches of the Democratic Republic of Congo, as well as parts of Uganda and Rwanda. Fully grown adults can reach 1.7 meters, or 5.6 feet in height, and can weigh as much as 200 kilograms, or 453 pounds. Females usually reach around 100 kilograms, or 220 pounds, and stand around 1.5 meters, or just under 5 feet tall. Two subspecies are known from the eastern species too. The eastern lowland gorilla inhabits much of the eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, while the mountain gorilla can be found in Uganda and Rwanda. To tell the two species of gorilla apart, you'll have to catch them in the right light. Eastern gorillas, while being larger, also have darker fur than their western counterparts, and that fur is generally thicker to help them insulate at higher elevations. They look generally more shaggy and wild than western gorillas, whose shorter, lighter fur can range in pigment from light blacks and greys to brownish tinged with specks of red on the top of the head. Eastern gorillas can also be identified by their broader chest, visible when the adult stands upright, and their longer, deeper faces. Gorillas are members of the genus Gorilla, and in turn belong to the family Hominidae, or great apes. They are some of our closest living relatives after chimpanzees and bonobos. The last common ancestor between Homo sapiens and the gorillas could be found as recently as 8 million years ago, before the two lineages split, and we adapted to different environments and lifestyles. Amazingly, humans share 98.3% of their DNA with gorillas, and many of our quirks and traits can be seen in these highly intelligent animals, but we'll get to that later on in the video. While gorillas can generally be found in rainforests across Central Africa, their range is patchy and covers a wide range of habitats, depending on the species or subspecies. Western gorillas typically inhabit lowland regions, where they will thrive in damp rainforests, river basins, and even swampland. Eastern gorillas tend to live in upland regions, with montane rainforests being favored. Populations of gorillas have even been recorded living as high as 4,000 meters, or a little over 13,000 feet above sea level. There are many similarities between the two species of gorilla, but behaviour, diet and general ecology change slightly, depending on species, subspecies or even population. Gorillas are strict vegetarians and are able to fuel their massive frames with the wide variety of plant matter available in their diverse rainforest homes. Lowland subspecies tend to have more diverse diets than the eastern gorillas living in the mountains, and there tends to be seasonal variation with what these animals eat, depending on local availability. The easiest to find and most commonly taken foods for a gorilla are plant leaves, with the pith or spongy tissue in the middle of the leaf, containing a high degree of nutritional value. Lowland gorillas tend to find themselves traveling over wider distances to obtain their favorite foods, fruit, which grows sparsely throughout their territories. Despite the need to travel to obtain it, fruit makes up around 25% of the diet of lowland gorillas, who will seek out and consume bananas, guava, and a wide variety of berries. Eastern lowland gorillas, despite being primarily vegetarian, supplement their diet with insects and have a particular taste for ants and termites. Mountain gorillas tend to rely on fruit less, as leaves, shoots and stems grow in abundance throughout the uplands they depend upon. Fruit is also taken when it is available, but mountain gorillas do not eat substantial levels of fruit in comparison to their lowland cousins. Edible foliage is so dense up in the mountains of Central Africa that populations of mountain gorillas rarely have to compete or travel to find food. Because of this, mountain gorillas don't find themselves traveling from place to place often, and can devote more time to foraging and resting. Interestingly, if you spend enough time around wild gorillas, you won't often observe them drinking. This might come as a surprise considering that their habitats are often rich in rainfall and feature large river systems. But gorillas gain most of their water intake from the food they eat. They can, and do, drink water when they need to, but gorillas typically consume vegetation that stores large quantities of water. Some foods contain as much as 50%. Moreover, many of the plants they eat will be covered in rainforest moisture, such as the rain droplets and dew, which all helps to keep these huge apes hydrated. Gorillas are extremely social animals. Groups are known as troops and are led by a dominant male or silverback, typically 12 years of age or older. A male in charge of a troop will travel, forage, and defend a group of females, each of whom he will mate with. Young gorillas will stick with the troop until they mature, at which point they typically leave to form new groups or join existing ones. In rare cases, multiple males have been recorded in the same troop, but dominance is always held by one individual. If the dominant silverback dies, other males may then rise to the rank of troop leader, and all mating rights and leadership responsibilities will then transfer to him. Events such as these can cause turmoil within troops, as the silverback will typically provide protection to his offspring. Young gorillas that are not the offspring of newly assigned leaders can be killed in the transitionary period. A leading silverback will guide the troop through the jungles, making decisions as to where the troop will forage, where they will nest for the night, and how to best keep the peace within the troop. Generally, gorilla troops are peaceful, and conflict is rare. Groups with multiple males may see subordinates help the silverback in defending his family from predators or rivals, and conflicts that do occur rarely lead to injury. When resting, gorillas will strengthen the bonds between one another by grooming and play, which can help prevent future disagreements or fights. In the wild, gorillas typically live between 35 to 40 years, but can live longer when cared for responsibly in sanctuaries or well-maintained zoos. The oldest gorilla on record was a female called Colo from Columbus Zoo in Ohio, USA, who was 60 when she passed away in 2017. Female gorillas will reach maturity at the age of 7 on average, while males are considered mature and fully grown between the ages of 12 and 15. A female will typically have her first baby around age 10 and will be pregnant for 8.5 months. Babies are born entirely dependent upon their mothers and will provide all care until they reach between 1 and 2 years old. Around the age of 3, they start to become more independent but will still spend time around their mothers until they are weaned. Outside of human impact on these great apes, gorillas fear few predators in their natural environment. The leopard is considered to be the gorilla's only natural predator, but given the size and strength of adult apes, they are usually safe from harm. Leopards will instead target young or injured gorillas who are relatively defenseless in comparison to healthy adults. Given the sparse nature of gorilla populations and their preference for dense remote forests, leopard attacks are generally rare and gorillas are usually capable of defending themselves. Bringing down a gorilla, even an injured or young one, surrounded by large, powerful family members, is usually too big of a risk even for a leopard. Western gorillas that live around waterways and river systems also come into contact with crocodiles, who may ambush unwary apes before dragging them into the water to make a kill. This too is rare, however, and crocodiles will usually prefer prey that cannot defend itself, as well as a powerful great ape. Great apes are the most intelligent animals on our planet, and gorillas are no exception. Individuals both in the wild and in human care have been able to display a wide range of skills and emotions typically associated with being human, which has helped biologists and researchers understand just how intelligent and empathetic these apes can be. One of the best ways to judge a gorilla's emotion is to listen to the sounds it makes in a certain situation. Gorillas can produce 25 distinct vocalizations, all of which come with their own variations. Gorillas will check on and guide one another while traveling through the use of grunts. While louder, more intense noises such as screams or roars can be used to signify a threat or warning, gorillas will produce deep rumbling sounds when happy, primarily during play or grooming, and can also laugh, whistle, whine and bark depending on their mood or surroundings. Gorillas are peaceful animals generally, and tend to avoid violence where they can, preferring to engage in threat displays that have complex structures and components. Gorillas attempting to send a warning message to a rival or troublemaker within the group will tend to follow a ritual pattern of behaviour. First, the ape will quickly whoop and hoot at the assailant in order to deter them. If this doesn't work, they will rise up on their hind limbs, throw vegetation, beat their chest, and mock kick in that order. If this still doesn't work, a gorilla will start to run sideways on 4 legs before hitting and slapping vegetation. The final part of this sequence, if a threat is still not deterred, sees the animal thumping the ground with its palms. Rarely do fights break out into anything more substantial, but adult male gorillas have been known to use their impressive strength and long canine teeth to inflict deep wounds if they absolutely have to. Gorillas are one of the few animals who have effectively learned to use tools to manipulate their environment and gain better access to food. Moreover, this behaviour seems to be grasped by these apes from very young ages. In 2005, a gorilla in the rainforests of the Republic of Congo, aged just 2.5, was observed using a rock to crack open palm nuts, repeatedly smashing the tool against the nut when placed on hard ground. While this behaviour was likely learned from an adult of the species, it was the first time a gorilla had been seen in the wild engaging in tool use specifically to obtain food. Even greater instances of tool use have been seen in gorillas living in the Congo's Nwabal-Ndoki National Park, where a female was observed repeatedly dipping a stick into a river before proceeding to cross it. She was able to gauge the depth of the water depending on how far down the stick sunk into the river, and knew that she would not be in any danger crossing it. Other gorillas here have been seen using tree stumps as stepping stones to cross deeper rivers, and have used twigs to scoop up food, making it easier to eat. Gorillas have even been suggested to have an understanding of their own cultures and practices that differ from population to population. Different populations of gorillas have been recorded preparing and obtaining food in different ways, and members of a troop can even show colour preferences. No 2 troops are the same, and all of them exhibit a wide range of behaviours and traits. One behaviour that is universal to wild gorillas, however, is their ability to make and use nests. Towards the end of each day, a gorilla troop will begin to construct nests to sleep in that night. Nests are made from branches and leaves, and, in gorillas, are typically built on the ground, although tree nests are known. Baby gorillas will share nests with their mothers, and the quality of nests improves as gorillas learn from adults and get older themselves. Nests can measure over 1.5 meters, or 5 feet across in larger individuals, and can easily support their weight without being destroyed. Gorillas in human care have shown an even wider range of skills and examples of their intelligence. Captive gorillas have shown that they are capable of solving puzzles to obtain food, and are even able to learn new skills from the humans caring for them, such as locking and unlocking enclosures when given a key, and even the use of sign language. Sign language in particular was a signature skill of Koko, one of the most famous individual gorillas in history. Koko was a female western lowland gorilla, born at San Francisco Zoo in 1971, who was fostered by Francine Patterson, an American animal psychologist. Over the time Patterson spent with Koko, she was reportedly able to teach the gorilla basic American Sign Language, which Koko was apparently able to adapt to form new phrases and ideas of her own. Researchers who have undertaken similar tests on great apes criticized Patterson's claims that she taught Koko to communicate with humans, and that Koko's abilities were essentially exaggerated by the popular media. Later concerns revolved around Koko's inadequate care, and Patterson's tests came under ethical scrutiny. Koko reportedly did not receive adequate medical attention throughout her time working with Patterson, and some showed disdain for the level of anthropomorphization Koko was subjected to. Nonetheless, gorillas are extremely intelligent animals, and are indeed capable of a wide range of skills, thoughts, and emotions. They grieve, they experience joy, and they form close relationships with both gorillas and humans. Unfortunately, our relationship with these great apes throughout history has had plenty of twists and turns, and gorillas need our help more than ever. The first instance in human history confirming a human gorilla encounter comes from Hanno the Navigator, an early Carthaginian explorer active between the 5th and 6th centuries BC. As he mapped the coast of Africa, Hanno, who had no knowledge or concept of apes outside of his own species, referred to them as gorilli, which meant hairy men in the language of his interpreters. Hanno actually believed them to be a tribe of savage men, and wrote in reference to them in the heart of the African rainforests. In its inmost recess was an island similar to that formerly described, which contained in like manner a lake with another island, inhabited by a rude description of people. The females were much more numerous than the males, and had rough skins. Our interpreters called them gorillae. We pursued but could take none of the males. They all escaped to the top of precipices, which they mounted with ease and threw down stones. We took 3 of the females, but they made such violent struggles, biting and tearing their captors, that we killed them and stripped off the skins which we carried to Carthage. Being out of provisions, we could go no further. So, sadly, the first recorded interaction between humans and gorillas in the historical record was a brutally violent one, which saw the Carthaginian explorers butcher and skin 3 female gorillas before carrying their remains back to Carthage. Following this, accounts of gorillas in the historical record are relatively scarce for the 2,000 years that followed, and they would not be mentioned again until European explorers began to chart the interior of Africa in the 16th century AD. There is no doubt that the native peoples of Africa would have met, interacted with, and possibly hunted gorillas in this time, but there is no written record of such events taking place. The next mention of gorillas in a historical context comes from an English sailor called Andrew Battelle, who was captured and held prisoner by Portuguese forces along the West African coast in the late 1500s. Battelle was held in a Portuguese camp by his captors on the mainland, where he would frequently encounter man-like creatures skulking around its forested borders. He described 2 kinds, which are thought to denote gorillas and chimpanzees. He wrote about his interactions with gorillas, referring to them as pongos in 1625. This pongo is in all proportion like a man, but he is more like a giant in stature. He is very tall and hath a man's face, hollow-eyed, with long hair upon his brows. His face and ears are without hair, and his hands also. His body is full of hair, but not very thick, and it is a dunnish colour. He goeth always upon his legs, and carrieth his hands clasped on the nape of his neck when he goeth upon the ground. They go many together, and kill many that travel in the woods. Those pongos are never taken alive because they are so strong that 10 men cannot hold one of them. As the 1800s arrived and natural history became a frequently researched topic amongst the scientists of the Western world, the gorilla would start to become understood. The first specimens obtained for study purposes were the skulls of gorillas found in Liberia, acquired by naturalist Thomas Staunton Savage in the 1840s. He would later write of the gorilla, describing it formally in 1847 as troglodytes gorilla, a scientific name for the Western gorilla that has now been replaced by the name gorilla. The first scientific observation of a live gorilla comes from French-American explorer Paul du Chaillu as he travelled through Western Africa in 1856, who would also bring dead specimens to be studied in the United Kingdom in the 1860s. In 1920, Carl Akeley from the American Museum of Natural History travelled to Western Africa with the intention of killing and obtaining a gorilla to be acquired by the museum. Around this time, we start to see human compassion regarding gorillas. Akeley was accompanied on this trip by his friend Mary Bradley, who would later become the author of On the Gorilla Trail. Off the back of her time spent around gorillas in Africa, she would become an advocate for gorilla conservation in the years that followed, and would influence later efforts to help the public understand these gentle animals for what they were. After World War II, naturalists and researchers began spending extended periods of time in the field, studying gorillas up close as they went about their lives. The most famous of these studies came from Diane Fossey, an American primatologist who worked with mountain gorillas from 1966 in the montane tropical forests of Rwanda. Her book, Gorillas in the Mist, would go on to become one of the highest rated and influential books on the subject of great apes, and her research helped to revolutionize the way the world saw gorillas. Over her time spent with the apes, Diane would campaign against gorilla cruelty and poaching, and spread awareness of the intelligence of gorillas, showing the world that they were peaceful animals and not brutish, savage beasts, as the media formerly portrayed them. So influential was her work that she greatly helped to reduce the speed at which gorilla populations were falling throughout the 1960s and 1970s. Appallingly, Diane's life with the gorillas would come to a premature end on Boxing Day, 1985, when she was murdered in her cabin by an unknown assailant, aged just 53. Throughout the 1800s and 1900s, gorillas became desirable attractions in menageries and zoos, in times before animal welfare was considered or understood in such institutions. Gorillas were often captured from the wild and forced into terrible living conditions, resulting in their premature deaths. Gorillas kept in inadequate conditions in zoos exhibited many stress behaviours not seen in wild individuals, such as the regurgitation of food, irregular aggression, pacing and rocking back and forth. In modern times, gorillas in zoos are typically those who have been part of captive breeding programs for conservation purposes. One such organisation responsible for the care and conservation of gorillas in an ethical manner in the modern day is the Zoological Society of London. ZSL London Zoo is home to a small troop of gorillas that assist with the global breeding program to ensure the future of these apes is a bright one. With enough space, stimulation, privacy and nutrition, these gorillas are able to thrive safely in human care and can ensure the stability of the global gorilla population for years to come. In modern times, gorillas have found themselves an icon of popular culture. Perhaps it's because they are so like us that they have found a special place in the hearts and minds of creatives. Gorillas have graced the big screen in the form of King Kong and its many adaptations, as well as the long list of Planet of the Apes films. They have been beautifully portrayed in wildlife and travel documentaries. There are numerous pieces of nature writing about them, and they have even featured in video games, providing their inspiration to Donkey Kong, Overwatch, and beyond. They remain one of the most popular animals to see in zoos, and people travel thousands of miles to the depths of the Congo rainforest to see them in the wild. They are by far one of the most charismatic and relatable creatures in the animal kingdom, and truly are unlike any other animal. Gorilla conservation. The greatest threats to gorillas, as well as all other great apes in the modern world, are humans. All species and subspecies of gorilla are listed as endangered or critically endangered by the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, and are at dire risk of becoming extinct if human interference in their world continues at the same pace. Western lowland gorillas are the most populous of all species and subspecies, with 316,000 individuals thought to be roaming the wilds today, and mountain gorillas are the most endangered. There are thought to be as little as 880 mountain gorillas left in our world, and while 4,000 western lowland gorillas live in the care of humans, not a single mountain gorilla does. Gorillas face a plethora of threats from humans, with the most dangerous being habitat destruction. Gorillas rely on dense rainforests to be able to support their diverse diets, and need vast swathes of rainforest to be able to roam, forage, and rest. Human advancement into their territories has resulted in huge areas of rainforest being demolished for logging, which means that these apes have less and less space to be able to thrive. Gorillas without a suitable habitat can easily perish, a scenario which is becoming all the more common as modern industry continues to spread. Gorillas are also unfortunate victims of poaching, and have been for a long time. Despite efforts to outlaw the killing of gorillas in West and Central Africa, the trade still continues, and gorillas are often slaughtered or captured for human gain. Gorillas were historically hunted as a source of bushmeat, a practice that is highly illegal today, but those who consumed the meat of the apes were seen as having high status. Even more vile is the practice of poaching gorillas for entertainment or trophies. Poachers in West and Central Africa will often shoot and kill gorillas to take their skulls, hands and furs, which can be kept as decorations or sold on to the highest bidder. In some cultures, gorilla meat and body parts are used as traditional medicines or magical charms. Obviously, gorilla meat does not have any medicinal or magical properties, so these apes often die for absolutely no reason. Poachers will sometimes opt to capture young gorillas instead of killing adults, but adults are often killed in the process of taking a youngster alive. A captured gorilla may be sold on the pet trade for rich buyers seeking the most exotic and illegal of pets. A hidden threat may also be reducing populations of gorillas in the wild disease. As gorillas are so closely related to human beings, it is thought that infections and viruses that harm us can also harm them. As wild gorillas cannot easily be tested and treated for such diseases, they often succumb to them without our knowledge, and scientists cannot be sure exactly how much of a threat this is. Between the years of 1964 and 2012, there have been 33 confirmed cases of humans passing on a disease to a great ape, and their populations will be affected much worse by outbreaks than our own, given their smaller numbers and restricted habitats. The future is not completely bleak for these amazing apes, however. The Great Ape Survival Project, a UNESCO and UNEP-led group formed in 2001 to protect non-human great apes and their natural habitats, tirelessly works to ensure that these primates have a future. The project helps protect natural tropical rainforests where great apes, also including chimpanzees, bonobos and orangutans, live in sections of Africa and Asia. They aim to work with people at all levels, from governments and industries to communities, to the apes themselves, in order to mitigate the problems posed by human advancement on ape populations. Individuals are introduced to less harmful farming practices, and governments are advised on how they can use their influence and power to save gorillas in the wild. Legislation also aims to protect gorillas in the wild, and the Gorilla Agreement, signed in June 2008, became the first legally binding doctrine protecting the apes. The agreement spanned all countries where gorillas are native, banning all killing and trading of the apes. Unfortunately, due to lax controls on law enforcement in regions where gorillas are native, poachers are not often arrested and effectively dealt with, silently encouraging the hunting to continue. To say that gorillas are some of our closest relatives, with levels of intelligence that very visibly reflect our own, it's sad to see that there are very few left. These animals have carried out their evolutionary history while we carried out our own, living hidden in the jungles of Africa, known only to the native peoples of Western and Central Africa until the world modernized. They have been here for a very long time, and we cannot afford to lose these magnificent apes now, especially through the fault of industry and greed. With conservation efforts and recognition from local governments, gorillas will prosper in the rainforests of Central Africa for millennia, and we will not lose them in such a horrendous and cruel way. If you would like to support the prosperity of gorillas in our world's jungles, then you can consider supporting charities such as the Gorilla Organization at gorillas.org, where you can adopt a gorilla to help ensure the prosperity of these apes for the future. It may take some time, but with the right frame of mind and enough backing, gorillas, as well as apes all over the world, can enjoy their jungle homes without human interference. Our desire for industry and advancement should not jeopardize the natural world. Once it's gone, it's gone.